Well, welcome everybody. It's fantastic to have you here with us today. I'm Kathy Roth Duque. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Blue Star Families. Blue Star Families is now the largest organization serving military and veteran families across the country. We have a mission to make sure that military families thrive in the communities where they live so they can continue serving our country and making our neighborhoods and our nation stronger. We are really thrilled to be here today with some fantastic partner organizations. The purpose of this webinar is to release some new research, new information we have on military spouse employment, looking at root causes and ways to really solve a problem that's been identified and given a lot of attention over the last 10 years, but without necessarily finding solutions. We want to discuss how you, as an employer and as an HR professional, can do your part to solve this problem. So I think many people on this webinar are aware that military spouse employment has been a top issue for military families since our very first annual military family lifestyle survey in 2009. Blue Star Families annual military family lifestyle survey is the first and largest, most comprehensive of its kind. We survey annually. To date, we have surveyed over 100,000 military family members. Wow. Spouse unemployment has been at over 20% for over a decade. It's been several times the civilian unemployment rate, which is now at 2.8%. I'm sorry, 3.8%. And spouse unemployment really matters. It matters in every way you can imagine. It affects people's mental health, and it affects the overall financial readiness of an individual. It affects the ability of a military family to continue to serve. Therefore, it affects military retention. Blue Star Families research up until this time has shown that despite a lot of real strengths in our community, which has to do with having an amazing mission to serve in the military, having higher rates of marriage and higher rates of education, despite all of these social determinants of health being very positive, we have high rates of mental distress and financial insecurity. And a lot of that can be traced to the military lifestyle. The spouse unemployment is as a result of the military lifestyle, because these are all folks who would have high employment rates if not for being military spouses. And it affects belonging. And we know that having meaningful work is one of the most powerful ways for a military family to feel a sense of belonging. So getting military spouses working solves most of the problems that are at root causes for distress in our community. Military spouse employment is therefore a national security issue, and as such, it's central pillar to our recently unveiled Do Your Part campaign. Do Your Part is a national coalition to ask members of the public to do their part in supporting our common defense. It has many aspects to it, but one of them is it's encouraging employers to help design military spouse friendly work options as their top solutions to military spouse unemployment challenges. So I have to thank our visionary partners, USAA, Navy Federal Credit Union, and PenFed Credit Union, who did something really historic. These are three competitors, three military banking organizations, which joined together to create a historic partnership to address root causes of military spouse unemployment. For those of you in this space, you know how unusual it is for competitors to work together, and really in a very creative and open-ended way. And jointly, we came up with this research to provide a new approach to determine what works to help military spouses obtain meaningful long-term employment. Not just what are the problems, but really what are the solutions. So they are here today sharing their own best practices for military spouse employment support, and hopefully inspiring continued progress. The report we released today is the first in the Military Spouse Employment Study research series. This report includes insights from a series of focus groups with employers to identify the challenges and solutions to recruiting and retaining military spouse talent. We're excited to share those results with you today. For the next 45 minutes, you'll hear a brief presentation of the report findings, learn more best practices from our expert panel, hear from our incredible partners at Hiring Our Heroes about the new Military Spouse Career Acceleration Pilot Program, which we are so excited about, and hopefully leave you inspired to spark new conversations and new efforts in your own organizations. So it's now my great pleasure to turn the program over to Dr. Jessica Strong, our Senior Director of Applied Research, who will provide an overview of the findings and who will moderate the panel. I just want to thank you all once again for joining us, and I hope to leave you inspired to do your part in addressing military spouse employment in your organizations and helping to make our entire nation strong. So thank you. Jess?
Thank you so much, Kathy. I appreciate the overview and the introduction. First, I would like to dive into an overview of the research findings, and then we'll move on to our fantastic panel. Our report is now available online. We'll drop the link in the chat for you. It breaks down our findings from our focus groups into 8 steps to building a holistic military spouse employment program in your organization. Now, there are plenty more strategies and tips in the report than I will be able to cover today, but I definitely want to make space for you to hear from our fantastic panel. So I'm giving you just the wave toss today, but please dive into the report, reach out and ask questions to our team in the panel or in the chat, and let's kick it off. So first is step 1. Step 1 is putting together the dream team. One theme that was repeated from several participants was throughout the focus groups was the need for a well-resourced team of advocates throughout the organization, but particularly within HR. This allows functions to be easily divided rather than one person who is working on both recruitment and retention, or who's working on both veteran and military spouse efforts. Multiple people could take on these different efforts. Having more engaged hands meant a more robust program. Step 2 is identifying military spouse talent, and this was probably the most important piece. Identifying both current military spouse employees and military spouse applicants was the most commonly reported challenge among participants. Spouses may be reluctant to self-identify because of fear of discrimination or repercussions. Our previous research has shown that unlike veterans, military spouses are the least likely to disclose their military affiliation in an interview, and nearly half of those who did reported that the employer expressed concerns about their potential longevity at the job. On the other hand, employers are also often reluctant to ask directly about military spouse affiliation because of the protected nature about marital status information. Employers offered a variety of strategies to encourage self-identification, but the most important piece of this is the transparency of why. It was really important to convey to spouses why they should self-identify in order to address their concerns about discrimination. It's important to offer a clear explanation of what is being done with their information and who will have access to it. Step 3 was making the pitch to both managers and applicants. Similar to assembling a dream team, focus group participants also talked about the importance of gaining buy-in from both managers and applicants. Among managers, focus group participants said there were often misconceptions about military spouses' reliability that counted against them. To counteract these misconceptions, participants did some internal messaging, such as highlighting military spouse success within their organization. To make the pitch to candidates, however, participants highlighted 2 key selling points that resonated really strongly with spouse applicants. 1, job transferability, and 2, the ability to work remotely. Obviously, this isn't possible in all roles or circumstances, but to the degree that it is possible, it goes a long way in attracting military spouse applicants. Step 4, connecting with military spouse networks. To recruit military spouse applicants, participants recommended several strategies, but I'm going to focus on just highlighting tapping into existing networks, such as the Military Spouse Employment Partnership Program, Blue Star Families Careers, or 12 Million Plus as examples. I would also like to note that Laura Torres, who is our Careers Program Manager, or our Associate Director of Workforce Engagement and Diverse Talent Sourcing, she is with us today and is happy to connect with you about Blue Star Families Careers program that connects employers to military spouse talent. We will also hear later in the program from Elizabeth Garcia, who is from Hiring Our Heroes, and will tell us about the Military Spouse Career Accelerator Pilot Program. Step 5, selecting for potential. Now, this one might be the most controversial piece. Participants in our focus groups identified employment gaps and non-linear careers as a major barrier to employment. To address this, participants highlighted 3 strategies. 1 was holding a resume review workshop to educate hiring managers about why spouses might have changed jobs often or work part-time. 2 was providing resume review cheat sheets to translate common volunteer skills and experiences that they may have that might be relevant to positions in the organization. Step 3 is the tricky one, ditching resumes entirely, moving to pre-employment assessments instead. One participant summarized this approach as looking for reasons to say yes instead of reasons to say no. Another thing is, although it was not framed as a strategy to address resume gaps, participants also discussed creating a spouse advisory committee to support candidate review, and developing training programs and fellowship programs to allow organizations to hire for potential and develop their employees. All right, step 6 is becoming a community that military spouses can rely on. Once military spouses are hired, a key retention strategy is helping them feel like they belong. Participants identified military spouse employee resource groups as a strategy to provide that peer support for spouses, addressing the isolation that often accompanies them when they relocate frequently. They also offered a variety of strategies to help spouses feel welcome and belonging. Just one that I would like to highlight is year-round benefits, meaningful benefits. This can be things like flexible working hours, a reduced vesting cliff for retirement plans, leave donation programs, PCS leave, even offering home office setup and tear down between moves. Now, organizations obviously don't have to offer all these benefits, but ultimately participants believed that these benefits kept military spouses employees with their companies longer than they would have otherwise chosen or been able to stay. Step 7 is sharing knowledge, contacts, and impact. Not every military spouse is going to be a great fit for your company, and that's okay. But sharing the great candidates that you have with others who may be a better fit at other organizations can benefit everyone. This is particularly true if you have a great military spouse employee who's moving away, has to leave your employment for one reason or another. Perhaps share them with another organization. Everybody wins. Finally, step 8 is turning practice into policy. There is no one-size-fits-all solution to military spouse employment, but each employer has the capacity to do their part. Employers who have successful programs can codify these practices into organizational policy, and likewise, share those best practices with other organizations, just like we're doing today. Okay, now that we have covered the high points of the research, I'm very thrilled to share our panelists with you, to invite them to join me for a conversation. I've had the pleasure of getting to know each one of them a little bit, and I can tell you they are a passionate group of advocates who are leading the way for spouse employment. So first, I would like to introduce you to Chuck Bunch from USAA. Chuck serves as the Military Affairs Relationship Director for Veteran Engagement. In this role, he leverages his military relationships to provide advocacy for military families and shepherds USAA's VetNet Employee Resource Group for the enterprise. Next, we have Britt Block from Navy Federal Credit Union. Britt serves as the Vice President for Talent Acquisition Strategy and Recruiting and joined Navy Federal in April of 2021. She previously worked at USAA, where she was head of talent acquisition delivery, empowering senior leadership teams to restlessly reinvent the talent acquisition function to deliver maximum value to key stakeholders and enable enterprise strategies. Britt has a broad background of recruitment expertise and was previously IBM's North America and Canadian Client Innovation Center's recruiting leader. That's a lot to say, Britt. Okay, finally, we have Miranda Jones from Penn Fed Credit Union. Miranda is a talent acquisition professional in Northern Virginia. Since leaving the military in 2010, she has worked in education, nonprofit, and financial services. Her knowledge of human resources, recruiting, employer branding, and talent management assures her continued success at Penn Fed Credit Union, where she has led special recruiting initiatives for the past 5 years. Miranda has a BS in Management Studies, an MA in Human Resource Management, and an MBA in 2017. She also holds 2 Human Resources credentials, the SHRM CP and PHR. All right, thank you, esteemed guests, for joining me today. Let's go ahead and jump in. This first question is for Chuck at USAA. First, why is military spouse employment important for military families and for the all-volunteer force? And moreover, why is it important for your company?
Well, Jess, thank you again for the opportunity. Thank you for the warm introduction. And, that's a great question. I would say that, just like some of the information that was revealed here today, We work closely with our friends at Hiring Our Heroes, and recently they released a study that mentioned that 30% of military spouses actually considered, you know, influencing their service member spouse to possibly separate or retire from the military due to pursuing a meaningful career. So we understand that, hedges on national defense and, having service members wanting to stay in the military. So retention in the military could suffer from that. So we understand that. But more importantly, we'd say that at USA, we feel we understand that military life can be very challenging. We understand that military spouses have firsthand knowledge of those unique challenges. But with those challenges, we know that military spouses, they bring so many amazing skill sets. You've heard it many times before: the resiliency, the impeccable work ethic, learning adaptability and agility, the unwavering dedication and just can-do spirit. The list could go on. Resilience, all those things. So we're very proud at USA that 10% of our employee population are comprised of military spouses. We also feel that military spouses, they enrich our culture at USA. And ultimately, we feel that they exemplify our brand signature, which is we know what it means to serve. I could probably go on and on, but please excuse me, I get excited. So I want to leave time for Britt and Miranda. So
Me too. I will invite them to share. But first, I have to share my very, very favorite quote from all of the focus groups. One of our participants said, "Military spouses can make lemonade out of potatoes." And if that is not a description of resilience and adaptability, I don't know what is. That's my new favorite quote. Let me pass it over to Britt and Miranda to anything to add there.
So thank you very much for the opportunity to join you all today. It's a pleasure and an honor. And Chuck, excellent points. I will say the MilSpouse, our teammates, the MilSpouse teammates, they're an integral part of Navy Federal's workforce. Over a quarter of our team members have self-reported, but that in itself is an issue too, because not many self-report. But when you think about a member-driven organization, we look for talent that will make our mission their passion. Military spouses, they understand the nuances of military life and they live it. And because of this experience, they do and can and have provided exceptional service to our military members. So they're a vital talent channel for us. I want to add one other thing too. You think about this unique labor market, and I've never experienced anything like it. I've been doing this since 1990. And why wouldn't we have this beautiful talent channel that we would pursue? And it is quite untapped. That needs more education on the value of their skills, experiences. It's an untapped channel. It's invaluable.
Thank you for that. Miranda, do you have anything to add?
There's not many other groups of people you can find who can logistically help plan and organize moves overseas and new emergency contacts at all of their new locations while making a weekly, monthly, yearly budget, including travel and visiting. And on top of that, military spouses want to work. I found that I got the most rewarding feelings of fulfillment when I was able to balance my own career and support my spouse and provide for our family. And when you have that cocktail of amazingness that combines, you feel very powerful. And I do agree 100%, Chuck, as you mentioned. If somebody in a partnership is not fulfilled because of the other partner's location or career, there is going to likely be that conversation of, well, your career isn't suiting our family as a whole. Should we do something about it, regardless of what that is, whether it's a geo bachelor, it's separation, it's somebody getting out of the service. So I think it's important if it's about fulfilling work, why not support that? And also, if it is good for the military spouse, it is good for all of your employees. The benefits, the flexibility, the retainability, it's really important. And I'm so glad to be here.
I would agree, and I love that Chuck that you brought up research. You know, that's my background, and that's where I'm at. We've definitely seen in the research that we've done that spouse employment does have a big impact on service member retention, and even recommending service to the next generation. We know the next generation of service members is mostly coming from military families. So if we're going to continue to have an all volunteer force, this is an issue that has to be solved. All right, the next question is for you, Miranda. Tell us a little bit more about one of the key practices that employers described is the ability to transfer military spouse employees to a new duty station. How does PenFed do this, and what advice do you have for others who are looking to adopt this practice?
PenFed has always provided opportunities for excellent employees to relocate, whether it was to a new location or totally have a virtual role where reasonable and applicable. And 2020, we all learned how many roles can be remote and can be virtual or can be relocated to different areas, barring some unforeseen things or laws and regulation, of course. And we're happy to continue to do that where reasonable and ethical and legal to do so. I think that having that for years for every employee, it really does express to the military spouse community that this is possible for everyone. And it's another way to affirm our military friendliness, not just for our members and the services that we provide, but for our employees. Whether you are a military spouse or a transitioning service member, we want to support that job portability whenever and wherever available.
Thank you. I know that portability and remote work ability is so important. And that was one of the things in 2020 when everything shut down and the world was coming to an end. And we saw that so many companies moved to remote work. My one silver lining was like, oh, this will be good for military spouses. Employers will be able to see that remote work is legitimate work and you can be extremely productive and work remotely. I know many organizations are moving back to in-person practice or in-person offices, and there's space for that too. I'm going to ask the next question to Britt. Britt, what sort of specialized programs have you stood up to advance military spouse career development and retention? Not just about hiring, but about developing and retaining military spouses.
Great question. We do have, like my peers here, we do have a dedicated military affairs team, and it's embedded in our talent acquisition department. And that team is solely focused on hiring veterans and military spouses. And it's been such a great journey. They've made so much progress and they've really grown. And our CEO, Mary McDuffie, and COO, Dietrich Kuhlman, they have very much embraced elevating the programmatic efforts. We have so much support. We also stood up in talent acquisition what we call the internal mobility program. So the internal mobility program, we have started the program with focusing on MilSpouses. So we actually have a system in place. It's automated that when a military spouse knows that they're about to get deployed, they put in we call it a ticket to our team, and we guide and support and facilitate that process from, visibility to enterprise-wide opportunities, helping them with their resumes, interview tips. But I think the other critical support that we received through standing up the internal mobility program, and this was on behalf of Dietrich Kuhlman, he's been so supportive, is that not every deployment will be within a commutable distance to a branch. And we are hybrid, Navy Federal's hybrid. We have 1 day a week on site. But we did not want to lose that MilSpouse talent. We wanted to retain it. So we did get blanket approval for remote roles if they were not within a commutable distance to a branch. I think the other fun thing that we've done, and it's been such a huge hit, is that we have what we call internal spotlights. So we have a beautiful picture of the person, and we've got their bio and what their skills are, and we send that out enterprise-wide to a leadership link. So all of our hiring leaders can see who's available, what talent's available. And I'm not kidding you, the response has just been amazing. And it's fun to highlight people, to give them that platform to showcase their skills and talent. And then finally, like my peers, we do have an employee resource group. It's the Military Community Network. And that was recently stood up about 6 months ago. So that's an open platform for military spouses, but really all of Navy Federal team members. And it's been great to share ideas. We've had networking. We call it kind of our internal career fairs. So those are just a few things that we've put in place, and they've gone really well. I'm really proud of the team and their efforts.
That is wonderful. And that answers one of the questions that we saw pop up in the chat, which is knowing how PCS season hits spouses and families, do you promote remote work? And so many of your organizations and the other organizations that we heard from in our research said remote work is one of the best ways. It doesn't, that said, it doesn't work for everybody. If you're a bank, somebody has to be at the bank. So some of those roles won't work remotely, but there are those opportunities that you talked about to transfer and move people internally. And I love that you highlight the internal messaging. You're highlighting people within the organization. So not only is that person elevated, but the other military spouses in that organization really can feel like I belong here. This is part of I belong in this space. So, and we know that belonging is so important for resilience, both belonging to a community, belonging to a workspace. Super important. I have one more question for you, Britt, and then we'll go back to a couple other questions to your panelists. But we saw in the research that employers recommended resume interpretation because military spouse resumes often have employment gaps. They look nonlinear. They're kind of part-time here, full-time there. But this doesn't diminish their skills. How do you guys do that in your organization?
Yeah, so it's unfortunate that there's what I call employment gap bias, and we do need to make concerted efforts to mitigate that bias. So we've done a lot of education. We call it a roadshow. We do the roadshow across the enterprise, and we do presentations to hiring leaders because we want to address the misconceptions about military spouse reliability. I mean, they're going through deployment and relocations, and we really want to showcase their success in the roles that they've held. And the most important thing that is a priority through these programs is we want to retain that talent. We want to ensure that there's career continuity for all of our MilSpouses, but we also want to promote their career advancement. We have done Navy Federal University. We have LinkedIn Enterprise. A big focus for Navy Federal Credit Union is upskilling, reskilling, rotation programs, flexing talent across business units. So really having that very rich and robust career advancement journey. But then also we are very focused on flexible work and also giving them a rich, competitive total rewards package, employer benefits. And I do feel that we offer generous benefits.
Yeah, that was another thing that came up in the research is offering benefits that are attractive to military spouse employees and in a variety of different ways. I wasn't able to hit all of them. There's more in the report if you want to go through and read it.
Well, I want to add one thing too.
Yeah.
This is super neat. Probably the biggest opportunity and challenge that we've experienced, especially post-COVID, is childcare. So we did implement a program at Navy Federal for childcare assistance and support. So that's gone over really well. It's been super well received.
That is fantastic. We know that childcare is one of the major barriers, and service members' day-to-day job demands and childcare are the two top things year after year that are preventing spouses from being employed. So I love that you have done that. That's amazing. I'm going to ask one more question of Chuck, and then I'll open it up to Miranda and Britt as well. Chuck, broadly, what lessons has your organization learned about hiring and retaining military spouse employees?
Another great question, Jess. Thank you for that. One lesson learned that I would like to highlight, and it's around retention. And, kind of going back to what Britt was mentioning about employment resource groups and So we're very fortunate at USA that we have an employment resource group called VetNet. And part of VetNet, we also have VetNet Spouse. And it's just really, uplifting to see, how much fulfillment, purpose, sense of belonging. I think that sense of service or being able to give back is very important to, military spouses, because they're normally selfless. They sacrifice so much. So being able to give back through VetNet Spouse and as I've mentioned, enriching our culture. That's what VetNet Spouse does. I'll give an example. Back when the pandemic hit, and so we didn't have as many, people weren't coming into the office. And one of our rich traditions at USAA is, on Friday is Red Friday, wearing red, seeing that sea of red. So when we didn't have people coming into the office, our CEO, Wayne Peacock, he highlighted the influence and the power of our VetNet Spouse group, because they were keeping that cultural campfire, blazing. They had Zoom backgrounds, wear red on Friday. So just to give an example, but they do so many things through VetNet Spouse, but that sense of purpose and that inclusion and that sense of belonging, is all captured through that employment resource group. And that's what we discovered. It is a great ingredient to retention for us at USA.
Fabulous. Britt, Miranda, do you have any lessons that your organization has learned that you would like to share with everybody?
I was thinking about this, and I think a lesson learned is we have to also go beyond employment. And when I say that, I mean we need to elevate programs that support mental health, wellness, and of course I mentioned childcare, but also we want to pay attention to elevating their career with that robust upskilling, reskilling, and development. So but I'd say the lesson number one is looking past just the employment aspect and looking at the whole person, graceful leadership, leading with the heart, and going beyond that employment with the wellness and mental health.
I agreed. We're all whole people. We are not one aspect of a person. Miranda, what would you add?
Support and provide an environment that cares about the whole employee, not just who they are from 9 to 5 or what they do from your organization. Support the employee who wants to have a fantastically exciting individual contributor role and they want to stay in that role for 10 years and they are not concerned about promotion or climbing a corporate ladder, but also support the employee that does. Because you're going to find both of these things for all individuals, regardless of where they're at in their life. And the next thing is by self-identification, it is eye-opening how many military spouses there are that are sitting in senior vice presidents slots or director slots, and it's quiet and it's humble. It is not always loud. There's not always a banner, but you will find these women and men who are military spouses and or veterans who are willing to be that mentor, be that guiding light, and help to support somebody inside the organization, outside of the organization, through all of the different chapters of their life, whatever that is.
I love that sense of camaraderie that you're talking about, like that giving back and being a mentor for others who are coming up in your organization and mentoring them. That is just exemplifying the military community, that we're all looking out for each other. We have two questions, well, hopefully two questions. We have at least one question from the chat that I would like to share with you guys. And you've spoken a little bit about it. It was actually aimed at Britt, but I know several, like Chuck also has an ERG. So the question was, how do you encourage your employees to join your military ERG? Our organization has one, but we struggle to get employees to join, especially veterans and military spouses. Do you guys have some tips?
Well, I have full disclosure, transparency here. So our military community ERG, which was stood up by Dr. Julia Metcalf, that was our first employee resource group. So it was really exciting across Navy Federal. We have 22,000 employees. We had not had an ERG. And so getting people to participate in the ERG was not difficult because it was celebrated. We had a huge town hall. It was really exciting. So it's going strong and we're adding more. So Julia's done such a great job.
That's
If I may
fantastic.
add,
Yeah, please.
if I may add, I would say some observations that I've made where, I may start out small, maybe there's a small attendance, but then you encourage those that are attending to bring fellow military spouses to that so they can see the value, because sometimes when you see it in person and you just get that, that energy that's, in person, it kind of like, gets people excited, and then they're inspired to get others to join. So it's kind of like peer pressure from within that we've seen, but they're excited about it. So they bring other military spouses, or maybe they weren't aware, and say, hey, you need to be a part of that net spouse. And so that's, sense of community is a big part of who we are in the military. And so having that community you can lean on for, whether it's peer support, whether it's professional development, those are vital within an organization. So that's what I've seen through my, observations. And, don't get discouraged. If you start out and there's only a few, it can be a force multiplier, but you got to create that value that they see, and then they can continue to spread the word.
Research, we call that snowball sampling. Peer pressure works
Sure.
though. Peer pressure, that's also part of it. Miranda, do you have anything you want to add there? I know your colleagues have said quite a bit.
One of the struggles that I've had with the ERG for military families at my organization, and I'm definitely going to be emailing Chuck and Britt for sure, is we're quite dispersed. And if you look at the sampling of the DC metro area that has tons of philanthropic organizations, there's volunteerisms for the community, for the military, for the retirees, for the veterans. It's just aligning an ERG outreach project that also can contribute towards something. So for example, if somebody on the offhand is already going to volunteer for an organization that may provide a home to a veteran in need, if we choose to volunteer, that still benefits the ERG because we're talking about it, or we're inviting some of our veteran or military colleagues to attend. So it is still a newer program to our organization. I love it. I think it's great, but there are, respectfully and transparently, there are some hurdles. And I'm so glad to be connected with individuals in this space so that we can share ideas and talk about what works, a lot like this closing the loop conversation.
Oh, that makes me so happy. That is what I was hoping to see as a result of this webinar, is bringing people together and sharing best practices and connecting with others who are doing this work. And maybe you have a different perspective. So it warms my heart to see that. So moving on, unfortunately, that's all the time that we have for the panel, because we've saved some space for Elizabeth Garcia from Hiring Our Heroes. So in addition to the best practices you've heard a little bit about today, another new tool to address military spouse employment is this Military Spouse Career Accelerator Pilot Program. So with that, I'd like to introduce Elizabeth Garcia to tell us more about it. Elizabeth, over to you.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me now. We good? Okay. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and talk about this great new program. I guess the good news is, if you're tuning in, you have an interest to learn how military spouses can bring values to your teams. And Hiring Our Heroes has a great military spouse fellowship program. We're going to talk about the new development of our Military Spouse Career Accelerator program that really does make it easy. Just yesterday, we released 200 resumes out to companies. So if you're interested in tapping into military spouse talent, we literally hand them to you on a silver platter every single month. So let's get into our Military Spouse Career Accelerator pilot. And I forgot to introduce myself too. I'm the director of our Military Spouse Fellowships at HOH. I'm also an Army spouse of 22 years. And I should say aloha, because I'm actually tuning in from Schofield Barracks, Hawaii, where my family's been stationed for 5 years. Our Military Spouse Fellowships here at Hiring Our Heroes, we have placed 11,000 fellows into fellowships since 2015. And we had such an exciting opportunity to grow our Military Spouse Fellowships in 2022 when we got the mandate and the funding through the National Defense Authorization Act. So with that funding and with the mandate, DoD, Deloitte, and Hiring Our Heroes collaborated to put forward our Military Spouse Career Accelerator pilot. And if we go to the next slide, I think it might help me talking a little bit about what exactly is the Military Spouse Career Accelerator pilot, or we call it MSCAP over here. So next slide kind of goes into explaining what this is. So MSCAP, just so you know, is the same exact thing as MSFP. All right. So it is a 12-week program where it allows companies to test drive military spouses in fellowships. And I've always said that fellowships are a very fancy word for an internship. So again, we release these resumes to host companies. You're able to interview these candidates that we have vetted. And then if we have a love connection, you're able to test drive them into roles for that 12-week period. And it allows them to grow those networks, to get mentors, to be put in these roles where, again, if we have the love connection, we are offering them employment at the end of the 12 weeks. The program, and this is something we forget to mention sometimes when we are pitching this program, it is 100% free for employers. In fact, we have found that this program saves employers about 25% in salary savings. So it is really a wonderful opportunity for you to tap into military spouse talent absolutely free. We have a 91% job offer rate right now. So that means that most military spouses that we are aligning into fellowships are getting an offer from their host company, and we're really excited about that. The number that you're seeing there on the very bottom, it says 1,200 completed fellowships, and that's on the military spouse side. I'm actually really excited to tell you today that with our launch of MSCAP in 2023, we have placed about 350 military spouses just through the Military Spouse Career Accelerator pilot. I'm hopefully beaming when I'm telling you that number. That's a really exciting number. So we look to be placing about, that number should hit 1,500, maybe close to 2,000 this year. So we're really excited about what this program's done. With our collaboration with DoD and Deloitte. Again, we have about probably closer to 200 participating companies that are hosting our military spouses to date. And I probably didn't mention this earlier, but a lot of companies ask us, how are we able to host this military spouse for free? Because I've mentioned that it is free. And just for your situational awareness, we have stipends set up for each and every spouse that we put through a fellowship. We pay them $18 an hour. They are actually the employee of a third-party staffing agency that we have worked with since we launched the program. So all liability is covered. You as a host company don't have to do anything to host a spouse. Our team and our staff handle everything, making sure those paychecks are turned in or released every month, and hours are allotted for and counted for. So, again, that stipend is $18 an hour, but it does not commiserate to what we expect on the other side. We have a lot of wonderful, upskilled, educated military spouses to offer. And what we are finding is the salary on the other side is about $70,000 right now. So really a wonderful opportunity for military spouses to get the opportunity to get plugged into companies and to get hired. Okay, let's go to the next slide if we could. So our program's growth, super exciting. We launched, and actually this was my baby when I first came on to Hiring Our Heroes in 2017. I was the program manager that launched this program in the state of Maryland. Back then we were working on a dislocated worker grant that was allotted and given to Anne Arundel County in the state of Maryland. So we started this program then. It used to be a 6-week fellowship program, and we used to pay our military spouses $15 an hour. But as you can see, we've had year-over-year growth. 2018, 2019, we expanded to 4 nationwide locations. In 2020 and 2022, we had 8 locations. You can see those numbers were rising every single year. We were getting very excited. And then again, with the NDAA and the collaboration that happened at the end of 2022, boom, in 2023, we grew this program nationwide. Now we have military spouses applying from all 50 states. And we turned the 6-week fellowship model into a 12-week fellowship model. We received a lot of feedback from host companies just saying that 6 weeks wasn't quite enough. So now this program mirrors our corporate fellowship program for our transitioning service members. It's very similar. The big difference, if you are somewhat familiar with that program, is that we have a monthly resume release and flexible start dates. We do not run in cohorts. So if you're a company that wants to tap into this program, we can usually get a military spouse up and running in about a week and a half on the paperwork. So very easy. We try to make this as easy as possible for a host company. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so how does this work? Every military spouse that we vet them for the program. They have to interview well. They have great resumes. We consider their career ready, and they are ready to go for that 12-week fellowship. What it's like for you as a host company, the second Tuesday of every month, which was yesterday, by the way, you would have received an email with a link to view these resumes. We had 221 resumes that went out yesterday. So that is an open window for you as a host company to interview these military spouses, kind of get a feel for them. And then if we have, again, that love connection, you make a fellowship offer. And again, it takes about a week for our military spouses to be able to start that fellowship with you. One question I get a lot here is, how virtual does this look? We are always wanting to have conversations with companies that have that portability and flexibility, because that's always going to be key when you're looking at military spouse careers. But every military spouse, when we are vetting them, is expected to physically go into a brick and mortar location and do their fellowships. Part of this conversation we understand is they have to obviously win you over, go in there and do the job, do a good job. And then we can at that point, after they've been employed and you see what value they bring to their team, we can look about maybe making those jobs virtual or remote down the road. A little bit of our process. And again, that resume release comes out the second Tuesday of every month. So if you're interested, that will be November 14th, or we have those candidates ready for your viewing pleasure right now. And I'm going to get to how you get there in just a bit when we close out the session here. But next slide, I think we're almost wrapped up here. Okay, and again, this is, I think it's great that I don't really have to sell the military spouse that hard today, because I feel like all of you are tuning in for a great reason, because maybe you're already a bit sold on what the military spouse brings to the table. But again, you heard Kathy say earlier, we have a very high underserved population in our military spouses. 21% of military spouses are unemployed. And we're really hoping programs like this to begin to move the needle on that. And make these opportunities happen. Again, there's no cost to host a fellow. In fact, this is going to save you 25% in your salary savings. And again, the diversity here, that number says 92% are female, but what we have found in the program is about 96% of our candidates are female in the military spouse fellowship program. And again, extremely high levels of diversity. Our military spouses mirror the diversity that you're going to find in the military. We have about 46% of the spouses or the candidates in our program have master's degrees. And what you're going to find is this is an extremely upskilled, educated talent pool that has really been underserved for a long time. So that's why you should hire a military spouse. Okay, I think we might have one more slide and then we can wrap it up. Okay, so becoming a host company, what do you need to do? I think they're going to provide a link. This is our MSCAP host inquiry form. Basically, within 48 hours after you submit this application, we'll have somebody reach out to you. We'll schedule a phone call. The biggest thing that we're looking for is intent to hire. We don't want companies looking at this fellowship opportunity as an experience only for a spouse. Military spouses are voluntold to do a lot when they sign up for this life. So we really aren't looking for volunteer experience opportunities. We really want a job on the other side of this 12-week fellowship. So that is something to note. We'll ask you that question when we're vetting and looking for that job description. Where is that sweet spot within your organization where we feel like our talent could be a match? And I think if we go to this one last slide, I keep saying that, but here is probably a question that you were going to ask if you haven't asked it in the chat. But these are our top 5 fellowship roles. This goes back to that sweet spot I was just talking about. These are our top 5 fellowship roles trending in 2023. HR and talent acquisition. Somebody used the word force multiplier a little while ago. We say that if you hire a spouse there in that HR or TA piece position, it's usually going to be your force multiplier to become more military friendly. Program project management, business operations administration, analysis. That's becoming a very big growing field for military spouses as well as IT. And again, we talk to a lot of companies that are looking to increase their female hires in IT. This is a wonderful program to tap into. We have spouses vetted and ready to go. And again, top types of spouses in the program. We usually see 3 types of spouses applying. We do have a career entry spouse, so a spouse looking for his or her first opportunity, a career re-entry spouse. About a third of our spouses are that career re-entry. So if your organization has some type of returnship program, let's have a conversation, because usually this is a great fit for this population. And then that good old-fashioned dislocated worker. They had a really strong career, thriving upward career trajectory, and then they get stationed to Hawaii and they've lost it all, right? So they're looking for their fresh start as a dislocated worker in our program. Okay, again, I think that pretty much wraps it up. I think that the hopefully the link has been shared with you in the chat room. So if you're interested in being a host company and seeing this talent pool, please follow that link. We will be contacting you, having that quick vetting phone call, learning about your opportunities, hopefully finding that sweet spot with your organizations, plug in our great candidates from the program. But again, just super excited about all the things that are happening for military spouses with the launch of the Military Spouse Career Accelerator Pilot, which, by the way, that pilot, we're hoping to turn that word into program, because it is a 3-year pilot, but it's doing great things, and we're excited for that opportunity for military families. Jessica, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the sharing of that program with you, or the pilot with you. You sharing the pilot with us. There, I got it. Thank you so much for all the details. And that looks like a wonderful opportunity for many military spouses and for the organizations that are gathered here. So thank you. All right, that was a jam-packed 45 minutes, or that was a jam-packed hour that we've had. This concludes our event, but it does not conclude our work. We hope all of you will leave inspired to take what you have learned today back to your organizations, continue this effort. Moreover, I hope you leave here with new knowledge, connections with others, resources that will help you in your work. We appreciate all of you who've come out today to join, ask us your questions. My deepest gratitude to our partners at USAA, Navy Federal Credit Union, Penn Fed Credit Union, and Hiring Our Heroes for sharing your expertise with us and for supporting this important work. Together with your leadership and the support of the organizations that we have gathered here and more, we can create this meaningful improvement in military spouse employment. So now that you have heard about this new report, we encourage you to share it, help us move the needle and create more positive change in the military and veteran connected community by sharing these key findings. You can find it on our website. We've dropped it in the chat. We can repost it in the chat. We look forward to seeing you at future Blue Star Families events soon. So thank you all for coming today.